Yo, what is going on, guys? Jaeky here. Today we're going to be going over the top 10 essential tips and tricks for Valorant. And a lot of these tips even Radiant players don't know. Starting off with tip number 1, have you guys ever played a ranked match where you have a Sage on your team and then you always wonder whether or not your Sage has heal? So you always ask your Sage if they have heal, or maybe you're playing Sage and your teammates always ask you if you have heal or not, and sometimes you don't have it up. Well, this tip is going to help you out because you can actually hold down your Alt key to see what abilities your teammates have. So if you're ever wondering whether or not your teammate has an ability, instead of asking them and bothering them, you can actually just hold down your Alt key and it will show a little UI above their head, which will let you know what abilities they have and don't have. Alright guys, moving on to tip number 2. So you probably already know that your character will make a audio circle on the minimap that you can visibly see whenever you make noise in game, such as footsteps or even knifing. But did you know that you can actually use this audio circle to see whether or not you're safe from the spike explosion? So if your audio circle does not touch the spike, that means you're safe from the spike explosion. But if the spike is inside the radius of your sound circle, you will die from the spike explosion. So next time you want to make sure you're safe from the spike explosion, just make sure that your sound circle is not touching the spike. And you can also use this as a way to show off to your friends and teammates by standing as close to the spike as possible while still staying in the safe zone. Alright guys, moving on to tip number 3 is audio cues for when the spike is halved versus unhalved. So you can actually tell when the spike is halfway diffused based off of sound alone. So I'm about to play an example here of a spike that has not been diffused halfway versus diffused halfway, and listen very closely because you can actually hear a very audible difference between unhalved and halved. The pitch changes based on whether or not the spike is halved. So this is very useful for post-plant situations because as an attacker, if you have the spike planted and a defender is defusing it, you can always tell whether or not the spike is already halved based on sound alone. Alright guys, moving on to tip number 4, which a lot of high elo players already know, but I still see a lot of low elo players that don't know this tip, and that is how to go up slopes and stairs silently. So when you're rotating, let's say for example here, I'm rotating from B site to A site, and you want to go up the heaven stairs, you can actually do this silently without letting your enemies know that you're going up the stairs to heaven. So most players, what they'll do is they'll just run up the stairs when they're rotating like this, which makes a lot of noise and lets your enemies know that you're rotating to heaven. But the silent way to do this is you actually just hold shift right before you're about to go up the stairs, and then you jump your way up the stairs. So I highly recommend binding either mouse wheel up or mouse wheel down to jump. That will make this process a lot more consistent, but you can also just do this with your spacebar. But again, right before you hit the slope, all you need to do is hold your shift key and then spam jump while holding W up, and this will make you go up the stairs silently at about the same speed as if you just ran up normally. Alright guys, moving on to tip number 5. Did you know that you can actually drop your guns, both your primary and secondary gun, while defusing the spike? So to do this, it's very simple. All you need to do is go up to the spike and defuse it like normal. But while you're defusing the spike, you just press either your 1 key or your 2 key depending on which gun you want to drop. So if I wanted to drop my pistol, I would press the 2 key, and then you press your drop key, which is by default G on your keyboard right after that. So if I wanted to drop my primary gun, all I would do is hold my defuse key on the spike, press my 1 key, and then press G right after, and this will drop your primary gun while defusing the spike. You can use this to outplay your enemies by making noise after you've tapped the spike to make them think that you're not defusing. So let's say for example I'm in a 1v1 where my opponent is playing post plant and not peeking the spike. I can use this method to fake them out by fully defusing the spike and dropping my gun partway through to make them think that I'm not on the spike. Alright guys, moving on to tip number 6, which is extremely important, is jump peeking. So jump peeking can be a great way to get information on an angle that you think someone might be opping. So this is the safest way to get information on an angle while exposing as little of your body as possible. In fact, this is so important that I made an entire video dedicated to it, so if you guys want the full guide on how to jiggle and jump peek angles, I'll leave a link to that video that I made in the description below. But as you can see here, this is a very common angle at B main where someone could be opping, and a lot of players will just run straight into this angle just like this. But instead, if you jump peek, you can get information while staying very safe and reducing your chances of being killed if there's an opper holding this angle. So you can see on the opper's POV, this is what it looks like normally if someone were just to run into the angle. It's pretty much a free kill, versus if someone is jump spotting the angle, you can see how much harder this shot would be to hit than someone just going around the corner normally. So this is why jump peeking is so important for getting information. Tip number 7 is to stop instant crouching. So typically a lot of players, especially those in low elo or those who come from Counter-Strike, will instantly crouch after shooting just like this, and this is a very bad habit because in Valorant the best way to take fights is to tap and to burst and not commit to a spray, because spraying in Valorant is super inconsistent. So instead of instantly crouch spraying whenever you take a fight, you instead want to burst and tap and focus on strafing after you burst and tap so you're a harder target to hit. And this is how you want to take 99% of your fights in Valorant. If you're having trouble adapting to this, I would recommend unbinding your crouch key for a week or two just to get used to it. Alright guys, moving on to the next tip. This is how you want to enter smokes and leave smokes. So obviously if something is smoked and you want to push into it, it's very dangerous because there could be a player inside of that smoke. And also if you want to push out of a smoke, it's very dangerous because there could be a player on the other side holding that smoke. So this is how to give yourself the highest advantage when you're pushing in and out of smokes. So typically what most players will do is they will just walk straight forward into the smoke. And this is bad because the enemy can actually see your gun barrel before you see them. So they actually can just pre-fire you before you even see anything just by seeing your gun barrel. You can see from their POV, this is what it would look like slowed down. When you move into the smoke straight forward, they can see your gun barrel first. So to counteract this, what you want to do is you actually want to enter smokes sideways. So this is how you want to be entering smokes, with your gun barrel facing the side of the smoke so that your gun barrel doesn't show when you go through the smoke. This will make sure that they don't see your gun barrel first, and it will give you more of an even fight. Alright guys, moving on to the next tip. This is for those who have trouble breaking things like Sova Dart. So obviously when things get hectic, Sova Darts are really small and they're hard to spot. So when you're doing 180s trying to shoot the Sova Dart, sometimes it can be hard to spot the Sova Dart. And for this, we actually want to turn on bloom. So as you can see here in this example, the first one is without any bloom enabled. You can see that it looks like a normal dart on the wall, but it can be hard to see, especially if you're in a hectic situation. So what you want to do is actually go into your video settings, go into your graphics settings and turn on bloom. When the dart lands on the wall, there's going to be a huge glow around it, which makes it very easy to spot. So if you're one of those players who has trouble breaking Sova Dart, maybe try turning on bloom because this will make the dart easier to spot. Alright guys, finally for my last tip, it's going to be to turn on HRTF. What you want to do is press escape, go into your audio settings, and as you can see at the very bottom here, you want to make sure that enable HRTF is checked. And basically you can see HRTF provides better 3D spatialization of sounds by approximating an average head shape for the listener. Effect will be applied to footsteps, reloads, and respawns. So this basically just makes sounds in Valorant more accurate, and it will give you an advantage because you can actually locate sounds a lot better than if you have HRTF disabled. So I'm going to put a comparison here of HRTF enabled versus disabled so that you can actually hear the difference. And I highly recommend turning this on and getting used to it because HRTF on is 100% better than HRTF off. But that's pretty much it guys. Those are the top 10 essential Valorant tips and tricks. I hope this video helps you out, and if it did, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.